What is up, guys? Emmanuel Jones here, and we're here with an NFL video, and we're going to be doing our tier rankings. But I want to say congrats to the LA Rams for winning the Super Bowl. So this is my way too early 2022 tier rankings. So before I get started, make sure you put the thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to my channel for more options, and don't forget to comment down your opinion below to see who do you rank your team. So, here are our team rankings. Now, we only have 5 categories. We have the favorite categories, which the teams who are like the best in the NFL. The contender category are, teams who are contenders, could be eventually Super Bowl threats. And next year we have the dark horse, which means teams that who are make the playoffs, who could be getting close to making the Super Bowl. The average category, which means with our average teams, who are like 7 or 8 wins, or maybe below 7 wins, like 5 or 6, or maybe 4. I don't know, but they're kind of like not bad and kind of not far from a playoff team, and could be far from a playoff team. And then the last year, the no chance category, which I think the teams that have no chance, of making the playoffs, not going to the Super Bowl, and absolutely could be one of the worst teams in the league. So let's get started with the first team. We're only going to go in order right here. So we have the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seattle Seahawks are an interesting team. Now, this is a team that did not make the playoffs this year. But you know what? It all depends if Russell Wilson is going to be in Seattle or not. Because I heard the rumors thrown around saying that he might be moved. But you know what? I mean, if Russell Wilson, if he stays in Seattle, I think this team will be a contender. Or maybe be the favorites. But if he's not in Seattle, I mean, this team will probably be one of the worst teams in the league and could be average. Hey, but you know what? I feel like Seattle feels like their offensive talent is so special. I mean, the wide receiver duo is really good. The tight ends, I mean, it's great but not special. The running backs is okay. I mean, they could look to resign Rashad Penny. I mean, Chris Carson is so special. We know he was hurt all season. I mean, the offensive line is pretty good. I mean, it's okay but not special. Defensively, I feel like they need a scheme change. I mean, I don't really know how their philosophy will go, but I feel like defensively they need a scheme change because, they're piecing stuff together right now like they did in 2018 because Bobby Wagner's a free agent and Carlos Dunlap, I don't know. So they might lose some talent defensively, but not really. So I feel like they need a lot of work on defense, like in the secondary, at the corner position, at the linebacker position, at the defensive line. I mean, yeah, they need to look to improve that. But you know what? I don't really know. I'm assuming Russell Wilson will stay in Seattle. And plus, I feel like they're not far from being a playoff team or being the favorites. So assuming that I'm going to say Russ is there for right now. Okay, but if Russell Wilson, okay, if he's not there, okay, they're probably one of the worst teams in the league. Or else they could be average too, due to the fact that, they're losing some talent a little bit. But you know what? I'm going to say the Seahawks are a contender because of Russell Wilson. I mean, if Russell Wilson was not there, I mean, I would at least say the Seahawks, they're going to drop 7 some of the spots. But I feel like their coaching's okay. I mean, Pete Carroll always does a good job with his schemes and his defensive play calls. I mean, yeah, he does a great job with that. So, yeah, so they got to look to improve this offseason. I mean, if they can at least make the right moves, then this team will be aggressive and be very dangerous. All right, next team, we have the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are another interesting team where the Colts, They're a well-coached team. I mean, Frank Reich is one of the most underrated coaches we've ever seen. He's a great offensive play caller. I mean, the running back position's okay. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's a stud. I mean, they need to work on their receiving core. I mean, look to add another receiver because T.Y. Hilton seems like he's not the same player. I mean, Michael Pittman seems like he's a stud wide receiver. I mean, their tight end position is really good. I mean, they could look to upgrade at quarterback because I heard the rumor saying Carson Wentz might get traded. It might be moved due to the cap salary, but I don't know. I'm assuming Wentz will stay. I mean, Wentz is like an average quarterback, but he's not as bad as you think, but he's just okay. Like, he's not really an elite guy. I mean, the offensive line is very, very good. I mean, the defense, I mean, their defensive line is very good. I mean, DeForest Buckner is good. I mean, their linebacker position is good with Darius Leonard. Secondary is fine with Kenny Moore. I mean, they can look to add another corner. Maybe they can look to add a safety. So, yeah. So, yeah, they can look to improve that. I mean, their safety position is really good. I mean, Julian Blackmon's good. I mean, yeah, so their talent is their roster talent is really good. So, yeah, but I still think this team is still overrated. But I feel like the Colts are not far from being a playoff team. If they can at least get like an upgrade, like get like an Aaron Rodgers or a Jimmy G or Russell Wilson, okay, this team will probably be a contender or maybe be the favorites. But since given that Carson Wentz is their quarterback, I'm probably going to put them in dark horse because I kind of feel like the Colts are that team where, they feel like they feel like a playoff team because they were so close to doing it last season and, they almost made it. And they're one of these teams, who likes to fight hard and all that. So, yeah. But if I put them in average, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. But I feel like the Colts feel like they are a dark horse because of their fight and all that. And because of their philosophy. But and also, their defense, I mean, almost fell apart when they lost Matt Eberflus because he was hired to be the coach. So, yeah. So I feel like Indy will be up there for sure in a dark horse. All right, next team we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, another fascinating team. The Steelers are trying to figure out who their quarterback is going to be because they don't have a quarterback right now because Big Ben retired. But you know what? Their offensive skill talent is really good. I mean, Deontay Johnson is a stud. I mean, Claypool's really good. I mean, the tight end position is really good. I mean, I don't know if Eric Ebron can still play, but the running back is really good. I mean, Najee Harris, had a really great season. I mean, offensive line needs a little work. I mean, defensively, they're really good in the front seven. And T.J. Watt's a stud. Cameron Hayward's really good. Stephon Tuitt, is okay, is really good, but he was hurt all last season. I mean, the linebacker position is really good. I mean, they could look to resign Joe Scherber and all that. And also, the secondary, it's okay, but it needs tons of work at the corner position. I mean, Joe Hayden is a free agent, so maybe they could look to replace him. I mean, the safeties are okay. I mean, Micah Fitzpatrick's really good. I mean, they could lose Terrell Edmonds, but I don't think that's big of a loss as you think. So, with that being said, I don't think the Steelers are kind of far from being a playoff team because they made the playoffs last year. Because their defense was playing at the same level it was in 2020. So I feel like if this defense can play at the same level, then I feel like this team will be really good. But I'm not sure who the Steelers quarterback is going to be because I know Mike Tomlin, he's still a good coach and he does a really good job maximizing the talent on his roster. But I think that maybe if they get like an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson or a Deshaun Watson, okay, this team will probably be a contender or maybe be the favorites. But let's say if they don't get one, let's say if it's a Teddy Bridgewater or Jameis Winston, or maybe a Carson Wentz or Sam Darnold. I mean, if they get an average quarterback, okay, this team will probably be average. But I don't really know if they're going to get some of them. But I'm going to say they probably get a quarterback. I'm saying they might look to draft one. But even if they do, this team will probably be average. Because, I don't really know how. I don't really think you make the playoffs in your first year with a rookie quarterback. So due to the fact that we don't know what their quarterback is, I'm going to say the Steelers are just an average team. Because I just kind of feel like that the Steelers, I mean, they have some talent there, and they're really not far from being a playoff team. So I could move them up in dark horse, but I don't know if I can. So, yeah, we're going to see what happens. I mean, they could lose Juju, but I don't think that's big of a loss, you think. So, yeah. So I think the Steelers will be up. I feel like the Steelers will be average for sure until they at least get a quarterback who's good. All right, next game, we have the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are another interesting team. I mean, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with Matt Ryan and all that. I mean, Arthur Smith is still good. Is a good coach. I mean, he had a bad year. They had a bad season last year. Especially Dean Peen's a good coordinator. I mean, the coaching staff is solid but not great. But, the Falcons, I mean, they could look to trade Calvin Ridley and he could be on his way out, but I don't know. But I feel like the Falcons, the tight end position is really good. With Kyle Pitts had a great season. So I think they can look to at least add another receiver, get another running back. Maybe and also their offensive line needs improvement, but it's not great. Defensively, they need a lot of work in the secondary at the linebacker and the defensive line. I mean, it's not great. So by the way, Matt Ryan, I mean, he's a great quarterback, but he's not fantastic. I mean, he's still an average quarterback, but he's just not the same player like he used to be. So by the way, I mean, if Tom Brady stays retired, I think either one of the Saints, Panthers, or Falcons could win the division. But I don't really know. But I'm going to say the Falcons are just an average team because they were like that last year because, the Falcons are just average, with their offense, they'll make some plays and their defense is kind of the worst in football. I mean, it's not the best, but I think their defense is a little bit average. So, yeah, I feel like Atlanta is still going to be an average team. But even if they trade Matt Ryan, this team will probably be the worst team. So assuming that Matt Ryan is still the quarterback, I'm going to say that Atlanta is still an average team. All right, next team, we have the 49ers. Another interesting team. Now, I'm assuming that Jimmy G is probably going to be on his way out. And also, they're going to be starting Trey Lance as their future, which I don't really know how good he's going to be. I mean, if he improves really good, then I think this team will probably be a playoff team. But if he doesn't improve out of the way he does, like if he's not good this year, then his team will probably be average. But let's say they get like a Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson. If they get one of those quarterbacks, okay, this team will probably still be the favorites. But you know what? Kyle Shanahan, he's still a really good offensive play caller. He's a really great coach with his great scheme. I mean, this team is well coached. I know they lost their offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel. But their weaponry is really good. I mean, Deebo Samuel's a stud. George Kittle's a stud. And Brandon Ayuk's a stud. I mean, the running back position was pretty good without Raheem Morris. I mean, Elijah Mitchell improved. And Trey Sermon improved. Yeah. And also, their offensive line is very strong. Too. It's not as bad. I mean, defensively, they're really good. I mean, I mean, bringing back D'Amico Ryans as their defensive coordinator, I mean that's a huge plus. I mean, he's done a fantastic job with this defense during the playoffs. Their defensive line is very solid. I mean, they could lose DJ Jones, but I don't think that's a big of a loss. You think? I mean, linebacker position is really good. I mean, secondary is okay, but it needs a lot of work at corner. Like maybe they can look to resign either Jason Verrett or Josh Norman. Maybe you can add another corner. Maybe like get rid of one of them and probably add another corner. I mean, Jaquiski Tartt's a free agent, so it's not big of a loss if you lose. I mean, Jimmy Ward is still good. So yeah, doing that the Niners, I mean, they have lots of talent. I mean, they have one of the most talented rosters we've ever seen. So given to the fact that the Niners have the most talented rosters, you know, I'm gonna say the Niners are just the favorites. I mean, they're not far from being a contender, but that's a team you can argue. But I'm saying that the Niners are just the favorites because they have one of the most talented rosters we've ever seen, and they're well coach and all that. So yeah, given the fact that Jimmy G is not there and Trey Lance started, the Niners are still favorite. The next team, we have the New York Jets. The Jets are another interesting team. We're looked to see how Zach Wilson can improve. I mean, if Zach Wilson improves the way he does this year, I think this team will probably at least be competitive. But I'm really not in love with the coach. I mean, I haven't been a fan of. I haven't been a solid guy, and I haven't been. It hasn't got nothing to do with the coach. It has something to do with the person. But we know the Jets have a little bit of talent. I mean, the wide receiver position is not as bad. I mean, Corey Davis was hurt all year. I mean, they could look at a number one wide receiver because we know they drafted Elijah Moore, which he had a good rookie season. I mean, they could look to improve at tight end. I mean, they could look to improve at running back. I mean, offensive line, it's not fantastic. I mean, we know they drafted Elijah Vera Tucker. I mean, defensively, they're kind of good, but they need more studs. But I feel like that, because I feel like their defense might play better because all their players got hurt last season. So they should be better this year, bringing them back. I mean, the secondary needs tons of work. I mean, they need to look to improve at cornerback, look to improve at safety. I mean, Marcus May can go, but I don't think it's a big of a loss, you think. So, yeah, if the Jets can at least add a true number one wide receiver, then I think we can expect a big jump from Zach Wilson. So maybe I can put them as an average team, but I'm going to say the Jets are just going to be no chance. I feel like they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league again because that's what they were this year. But they were kind of average, but I feel like they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league again this year because they're in a tough division because they got to deal with Josh Allen. They got to deal with Belichick and the Patrons, and then wherever wherever they're going to be, I feel like they're going to have to deal with Tua and all that. So they're in a tough division, so it's probably going to be hard for them. It's probably going to be hard for them to compete. But I feel like they will be competitive in some games, but not really. All right, next team, we have the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, that's another team you can argue with, but I'm saying I'm saying they're a favorite because the reason why they're a favorite because they arguably have the best quarterback in Josh Allen. Their talent. They're talented on both sides of the ball. The receiving core is awesome. Diggs is a stud. Beasley is really good. Gabriel Davis is really good, which I think is going to be a stud. He had a fantastic season. Isaiah McKenzie is really good, and Emmanuel Sanders is really good. So they could look to lose some of them, but I don't think it's big of a loss. So maybe they can look to add another receiver if they lose some of them. The tight end position is really good. Dawson Knox had a great season. The running back position needs tons of work. They need to work their running back position behind Devin Singletary, but he's not as bad as you think. But I feel like they need to find a solid running back. But offensive line is good, but not special. They need to work on that. Defensively, they're really good, but they need tons of work. I mean, in the defensive line, at linebacker, I mean, secondary is okay, but I mean, they can look to add another corner, maybe get rid of Levi Wallace and add somebody else. I mean, their safeties are really good. So yeah, and their coaching is solid. I mean, losing Brian Daboll, I mean, that was a huge minus. I mean, keeping Leslie Frazier as a coordinator was a huge plus. So yeah, so I believe Buffalo's gonna be up there again for sure. So they don't have many holes, you think? So they could definitely win the Super Bowl this year, but I wouldn't be shocked. But can they win the Super Bowl? Yeah, but I don't really know if they can. Like, yeah. All right, next game. Next team we have the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are another fascinating team. Now, I'm looking to see what the Cardinals can do this offseason. Now, we already know that the Cardinals, we don't really know what's going on with Kyler Murray because he's panicking and all that. But you know what? I feel like the Cardinals are a pretty much good, talented team. Their coaching, I don't really know if Cliff Kingsbury is going to be the answer. And I don't really know if he can be the answer for the long-term solution. But I heard he will be. But I don't really know if he's going to be the guy. Because at least he did a really good job taking his team to the playoffs. But you know what? I think the Cardinals... I think the Cardinals have a good chance of doing it. Okay, so... Because I know they took a step forward this year. Okay, and Kyler Murray, he's still a good quarterback. They have some skill, talent on the offensive side of the ball. DeAndre Hopkins is a stud. AJ Green's fantastic. Rondo Moore had a good rookie season. Christian Kirk is pretty good. So, yeah. And plus, their running back position is really good because Chase Edmonds and James Connors are really good. Zach Ertz is really good. So, they got some skill talent. They could look to lose some, but I don't think that's going to be big of a loss as you think. Offensive line is okay, but not special. So, they need to work on that offensive line. Defensively, they were really good, but I feel like they need tons of work. They could look to, because I feel like their defense might struggle next year because they might lose Chandler Jones. But it's not big of a loss because they still got other linebackers there. I feel like they need to work on their defensive line outside J.J. Watt because outside J.J. Watt is not fantastic. Secondary needs tons of work. They could look to improve at the corner position. They could, safety's okay, but I don't really know what the Cardinals are going to be like because I don't want to put them in average because Kyler Murray seemed like he's a good top 10 quarterback because he was getting close to being MVP last year. So, yeah. So, the Cardinals seem like they're not far from being a contender because they weren't far from it last year despite them losing the playoffs. But I'm going to say the Cardinals are a dark horse because of Kyler Murray. So, yeah. I wouldn't put them as a contender yet. Can they be a contender? Yeah, but I'm not going to put them up there yet because if they can at least make the right moves defensively, then if they can make the right moves, then I think this team will be aggressive. So, yeah. So, I feel like Arizona will be up there for sure. Next team, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are another fascinating team. Now, we're trying to see what Philadelphia Eagles can do this offseason. Now, the Eagles are going to try to be aggressive this offseason. The Eagles, they did a good job, making the playoffs. Nick Sirianni, he's a great offensive coach. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. He played his heart out throughout the season. Offensively, they're really good. Devontae Smith is really good. Dallas Goedert is really good. The running back position with Miles Sanders, he's good. They could look to add another receiver. offensive line's okay, but not special. We know they're getting older. Defensively, they're getting a little older. They need to improve their linebacker position, and they got to improve their secondary a little bit. Like maybe look to Anthony Ayers. He can go, but they can look to add another safety. Maybe they can look to add another corner. Like if they can at least make the right moves, then this team will be very dangerous. But you know what? Given the fact that the Eagles' key players are getting kind of older, I don't really know they're going to look to replace them. But you know what? Their offense, they're getting a little older, but I feel like they need to make their roster a little bit younger and all that. So, yeah. The offense really wasn't a problem, so, yeah. So, by the way, the Eagles feel like they're not far from being a playoff team because they were really competitive because the coaching made them competitive. So I'm going to say the Eagles are just an average team for right now. I don't want to put them as a playoff team because I just really think the Eagles, even if they get Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, or Aaron Rodgers, okay, this team can be very dangerous. This team can probably be the favorites or a contender. But let's say if they don't get one of them, Jalen Hurts, he's still pretty good, but I kind of feel like Jalen Hurts, he's really not an elite guy to me, in my opinion. So, yeah. So, I just really think the Eagles are just an average team because Jalen Hurts, he's like a top 20 quarterback. Like, he's not close to being top 10 yet. So, yeah. So, I think the Eagles are going to be average, in my opinion. All right, next team, we have the New Orleans Saints. Now, the New Orleans Saints are another interesting team, though. But you know what? I feel like the Saints might take a step back this year because of the loss of Sean Payton. But, they got some talent on both sides of the ball. They don't really have a quarterback right now. They could look to resign Jameis, but I don't know. Okay, let's say, if they get, a Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson, or maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo, okay, this team will probably be the favorites or a contender. But you know what? Their offense is really good. Their offense is really good. Michael Thomas is a stud. We know he was hurt all year, so he should be back. But if not, they might trade him for other assets. But the tight end position needs a lot of improvement. They could look to add another receiver. Running back is really good. Kamara's a stud. Offensive line is still good. They could look to resign Teron Armstead, but I don't know. But if they lose him, then their offensive line could fall apart. Defensively, they're really good, but they're getting kind of older. The linebacker position is really good. They need to look to improve that to add another linebacker. They can look to add another pass rusher if they want to, outside of Cameron Jordan, Marcus Davenport, and David Meta. So they can look to add one of those guys. The secondary, they could look to add another cornerback. Safety position is really good. They could lose Marcus Williams, but I don't think that's big of a loss, you think. Malcolm Jenkins can still play. So, yeah. So, I think the Saints do have a lot of talent on defense. So, they could lose a little bit of players due to their cap situation. So, yeah. So, their cap space is kind of devastating. So, given to the fact that we don't know who the quarterback is, I don't think the Saints are far from being a playoff team because they were close to being a playoff team last year because of their fight. But if they can at least get a quarterback who's good, then I think this team will probably be the favorites or a contender. But given to the fact that if Jameis Winston's still going to be the quarterback, I'm going to put them as an average team for right now. This can totally change my mind, but I just kind of feel like this team is average because they just don't, because Jameis Winston might still be the quarterback. and I don't really know how their coaching is going to be with Dennis Allen. I mean, I feel like they will be competitive, but I don't really know how good they're going to be. So I feel like they need to take another step back before they can take a step forward. So that's how I see it. All right, so next team, I have the New Orleans Patriots. The Patriots are another interesting team, though. Now, the Patriots are well coached on both sides of the ball. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, which was really good. But Mac Jones in his second year, I feel like he can have another breakout year. I mean, offensively, they're really good. I mean, running backs are solid. Receivers are solid. The tight end position is really good. I mean, Hunter Henry's really good, but I don't know about Jonnu Smith. I mean, he hasn't really played much. Offensive line is really good. I mean, they should look to keep Trent Brown and Isaiah Wynn. Now, defensively, they're really good in the defensive line at the linebacker position, even in the secondary. So I think they could look to resign J.C. Jackson. I mean, they got some studs on defense. I mean, they got Jalen Mills. I mean, Adrian Phillips. I mean, Jonathan Jones should be back because we know he was hurt almost all season. So, yeah. So, I feel like that their defense is solid. And Bill Belichick, I mean, he's still a great defensive play caller. So, yeah. So, I feel like the Patriots, I feel like they're going to make a lot of moves. Now, because they did that last offseason. So, I kind of feel like the Patriots, if they make some more moves on defense, then I feel like this team will be really dangerous. So, yeah, I feel like this team will be really dangerous if they make the right moves. So, yeah. So, I think the Patriots, they're really not far from being the favorites. Like, let's say, like, if they can at least get an elite quarterback, then I think this team will probably be the favorites. But given that the Patriots, being competitive in every game and always show lots of fight. I mean, losing this team is probably going to be elite. I mean, losing Josh McDaniels was a huge minus. I mean, yeah. I mean, they still need them. I mean, I feel like that they don't really. I feel like their roster is pretty talented, but maybe they could look to add a number one receiver too. But if they look to at least add a number one receiver, like maybe like an Allen Robinson or maybe a Chris Godwin, or maybe Devontae Adams can go there, or maybe add a Deshaun Jackson or something like that, or maybe if they like add like a number one wide receiver like in free agency or through the draft. Then we can at least expect. Then this team can be very dangerous. But I feel like Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne are good number 2, number 3. But I feel like they need a good number 1 wide receiver to at least expect a big jump from Mac Jones. So yeah. So I'm just gonna put the Patriots in a dark horse right now because they're really not. I mean, the Patriots, they're not far from being a contender because trust me, they were playing like championship football. Like they were playing like championship football like through the season, like where they were winning every game. So yeah, I think the Patriots I feel like the Patriots will be dangerous this offseason. I feel like they're gonna make the right moves to be competitive. Like they're gonna be competitive in some games. So yeah. So I believe they will be a playoff team once again. All right, next team. We have the LA Chargers. The Chargers are another interesting team, though. Now, we know the Chargers had missed the playoffs last year, but you know what? I mean, they got Justin Herbert, who's like one of the best quarterbacks we ever seen. I mean, Brandon Stanley, a great defensive coach. I mean, the talent is really good. I mean, Keenan Allen's a stud. Tight end position, they can look to improve behind Jared Cook. I mean, They could look to add another receiver if they don't re-sign Mike Williams. So I'm willing that they're gonna try to re-sign Mike Williams. Um, Offensive line is very strong. Running backs are really good. I mean, Austin Eckler is a stud. So they could look. So yeah, so offense is really good. I mean, defensively, they need tons of work, but they don't really have that much talent. But they need tons of work on the defensive line, at the linebacker. I mean, at the secondary, maybe they can look to add another corner. Maybe you can get rid of Chris Harris and probably add somebody else. I mean, yeah. I mean, the safety position is really good with Derwin James. I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, the Chargers. I mean, I feel like the Chargers are likely they might take a step back this year due to the fact that their defense is kind of falling apart because I feel like Uchenna Uwalsu is a free agent. I mean, they could let him go, but I don't really know. I mean, Linval Joseph is getting a little older, and I don't really know if he's that good, but I know Joey Bosa's a stud. So maybe they can look to improve at the linebacker position, maybe improve at the defensive line. Like if they can at least make the right moves, then this team can probably be very dangerous. So yeah. So given by the way that Justin Herbert's a quarterback, I kind of feel like the Chargers, I mean, they're not far from being a playoff team because they were close to doing so last year, but they're not far from being average too. So I'm probably going to say the Chargers are a contender. And the reason why I'm saying the Chargers are a contender, because I kind of feel that the Chargers, I mean, they weren't a contender last year, but they were a dark horse. So they were close to making the playoffs. Now, the reason why I put the Chargers as a contender, because Justin Herbert is like he seems like because it kind of feels like Herbert is an elite franchise quarterback. So it's kind of bold not to put them in favorites. Like if they can make the right moves on both sides of the ball, then this team will probably be very dangerous, and maybe I'll put them in favorites. So yeah, so the Chargers are really going to be up there for real. Next team, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals are another interesting team. Now, I'm looking to see what the Bengals can do this offseason. Now, this is a team that made the Super Bowl this year that lost in the Super Bowl. Now, I mean, Joe Burrow, I mean, he seems like he's an elite franchise quarterback. I mean, offensively, they're really good. I mean, their skill talent is really good. I mean, Jamar Chase seems like he's going to be a stud. I mean, congratulations for him winning Rookie of the Year. I mean, T. Higgins is really good. Tyler Boyd's really good. I mean, they could lose C.J. Zuma, but that's not big of a loss, you think. They can look to add another tight end. I mean, running back is really good. I mean, Joe Mixon's really good. I mean, offensive line needs tons of work, but it hasn't been really great last year. They got to protect Joe Burrow more. Defensively, they're really good. I mean, Trey Henderson is a stud. Sam Humber's really good. I mean, they got some free agents too. I mean, Larry Ogunjobi and B.J. Hill, I mean, they're both free agents. I mean, they could lose both of them, but I don't think that's big of a loss, you think. So they could look to re-sign one of them, but they need to look to improve at linebacker. The secondary, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, Uwuzie is really good, and Eli Apple's very solid. I mean, Trey Waynes is solid. I mean, they could look to lose some of their corners, but I don't think that's big of a loss, you think. So, yeah. They could look to add another corner if they lose one of them. I mean, their safety positions are really good. I mean, Von Bell is really good, and Jesse Bates seems like he's a stud. So, yeah. So, defensively, they're really good in the secondary and up front. Because their defense improved last year. But you know what? I kind of feel like both of their rosters are really similar to the Chargers and Bengals. I mean, they're both really similar. But due to the fact that their coach with Zach Taylor, I don't really know if Zach Taylor is going to be the guy to take this team to the next step. I mean, he did a really good job with his team, taking them to the playoffs and taking them to the Super Bowl. But I think Cincinnati does have a better chance of competing. But I don't really know, because if I have to pick, I don't think they will go back to the Super Bowl. But I think they do have a very good chance of competing. But can they do this? Yes, but I don't know. But I might put Cincinnati in dark horse. But it kind of makes me nervous to put them in average, because Cincinnati don't really feel like they're an average team, because this team is really playing their hearts out and being prepared every week. So I could put them in dark horse, but I don't know. But I'm going to say they're just a contender. I'm just going to say the Bengals are a contender because of their fight and because how the way they made a playoff run last year. So, yeah. So Cincinnati is going to be up there for sure. But it's bold not to put them in favorites, but I feel like Cincinnati they're not far from being a contender because of their fight. So I feel like Cincinnati is just a contender because they have Joe Burrow. I mean, because he's a good quarterback and Jamar Chase is an elite receiver. So yeah, so they're gonna be up there for sure. Next team, we have the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears are another fascinating team. Now we're looking to see what the Bears are gonna do. I mean, Justin Fields is in his second year. I mean, they got a new coach. Getting getting the I'm getting the getting the Colts defensive coordinator in Matt Eberflus. I mean, they're really good offensively, but not great. I mean, their running backs are really good. Dave Montgomery's really good. I mean, they need to at least the receive. I mean, Darnell Mooney receiving core is really good. I mean, Darnell Mooney had a great season. I mean, Komet's really good tight end. Jimmy Graham. I mean, he's good, but he's getting kind of older, so he's kind of not the same player. Darnell Mooney had a great season last year, and Allen Robinson didn't do much. So he could be on his way out. So maybe they can look to add another receiver. Maybe that's through free agency or the draft. So, yeah. I mean, offensive line needs tons of work. I mean, defensively, they're okay, but they got to look to improve a little bit. I mean, their defensive front is not bad. So, yeah, and then also the secondary needs tons of work at the corner position, at the safety, behind Eddie Jackson. So I feel like if they make the right moves this offseason, then I feel like this team can be very dangerous. I mean, it can be. I mean, if Justin Fields, if he improves, if he's good in year 2, then I feel like this team will at least take a step forward this year. But I think Justin Fields is still a baller, though. So, yeah. But if the Bears, if they can make the right moves and Justin Fields plays at a high level, then I feel like this team would be a playoff team. But I still don't think the Bears are a playoff team yet, but that could be next year or the year I don't think the Bears are a playoff team yet, but that can be next year. So I'm going to say the Bears are just an average team for right now because, if Justin Fields, if he can play like a superstar, this team can be really good. For real, they can be. So I feel like the Bears do need some learning curves because they have a new coach, and I feel like they're probably going to change a new culture as well. So I think the Bears, they might be competitive in some games, but it just depends on how way Justin Fields plays. So yeah, I put the Bears as average. Next team, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys are another interesting team, though. Now, the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy in his third year as the Dallas Cowboys head coach, he's still good, but not fantastic. Dak Prescott, he's still a good quarterback. The running backs are very solid. Ezekiel Elliott is still really good, and Tony Pollard, I mean, needs a lot of work, but he's still okay. The receiving core is really good. I mean, Amari Cooper seemed like he's a stud. I mean, CeeDee Lamb seemed like he's a stud. I mean, Michael Gallup's really good. I mean, they could look to lose Michael Gallup, but I don't think that's big of a loss. But as we heard the news that Amari Cooper is likely to move on, so I don't really know who's the answer for the number one type guy. I don't know. It could be through the draft or free agency. They could look to add one. I mean, I don't know if Michael Gallup is the answer for the number one type guy, but that could be challenging. Offensive line is really, really good, but it needs tons of work. Defensively, they need tons of work, but it's still okay. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence, I don't know what they're going to do with him. Randy Gregory, I don't know what they're going to do with him. Linebacking position is really good. I mean, they could look to lose Vander Rush, but I don't think that's big of a loss. I mean, Micah Parsons actually had a good season last year. I mean, congrats him winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Secondary is okay. I mean, Trevon Diggs is a stud. I mean, he actually had a great season last year. I mean, they can look to improve at safety, and maybe they can look to add another corner. So yeah. So the Cowboys seem like they have a little bit more holes, but if they get rid of get rid of some of their players on defense, then I feel like this team right here is probably going to be average. But the Cowboys seem like they're not far from being favorites. But I don't really know if Dak Prescott is probably up. I'm not sure if he's going to be up Aaron Rodgers' level. I'm not sure he's going to be up Stafford's level or Joe Burrow's level, or I'm not sure if he's going to be up in Stafford's level or Aaron Rodgers' level or Russell Wilson's level yet. But he could be close to doing it. So I'm going to put the Cowboys as a contender, because I just kind of feel like the Cowboys are one of those teams that, they'll be competitive in some games, because, the good news is that, they brought back Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, which that's a huge plus. So I feel like Kellen Moore is going to make the Cowboys competitive, and I feel like this coaching staff is going to make the Cowboys more competitive. I mean, Dan Quinn's a good defensive coordinator, and he's been making them competitive this year, and Kellen Moore's been too. So, yeah, despite them losing in the playoffs, I think the Cowboys, I still think they still have a better chance of making the playoffs again this year, as long as they stay healthy, then on both sides of the ball, then they will. All right, next team, we have the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are another fascinating team. Now, this is a team that did make the playoffs last year. Now, we already know they got close to doing so because they kept on winning. Because I remember they started off slow and then they start to turn it around. Hey, but you know what? You know what? I just really think the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins seem like they're kind of another interesting team. Though I mean, Tua's in his third year with the team. I mean, they're gonna deal with some learning curves. Could have a brand new coach and Mike McDaniel, and we're trying to figure out how can he develop Tua, which I don't really know how he's gonna do it. I mean, the big news is that they lost Brian Flores. I mean, that's a big loss. So I feel like their defense could fall apart. I mean, offensive line needs tons of work. Defense. Their receivers are really good. I mean, Jalen Waddle's really good. Devontae Parker's really good. I mean, Will Ford, they could look to lose him, but I don't think that's big of a loss as you think. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, it's not big of a loss you think. I mean, tight position is good. But they could look to lose Gesicki, but I don't think that's big of a loss you think. But they could look to resign, but I don't know. He's a still good tight end. I mean, the running back position needs tons of work. I mean, they got to look to add one. I mean, defensively, I think they need a scheme change. I mean, I don't even know if they had a scheme change, but I feel like they don't have a lot of depth on defense. But they still got Xavier Howard in the secondary. I mean, Javon Holland's really good. I mean, linebacker position is good, but not special. Defensive line is okay, but it's not special. So they got to look to improve that. So, by the way, I still don't think the Dolphins are kind of far from being a playoff team. But if if I had to pick right now, I don't even know the Dolphins can get to the playoffs. I mean, they're not far from being a playoff team because of their fight. And Tua, he's an okay quarterback, but he's not like special. He's not like a top 10 guy, but he could be playing like a top 10 guy. But he's kind of average to me, in my opinion. And and I kind of really think with Mike McDaniel, I think he's gonna make the Dolphins a lot more competitive. So, by the way, I'm going to at least put the Dolphins as an average team because they were like that last year. I just kind of feel like that the Dolphins don't have enough offensively to get to the playoffs because, their team is still young, but I just don't think that their offense, I don't think they're going to do enough offensively to get to the playoffs. But they will be competitive in some games, but I don't know if they can do enough. Okay, but if they can at least get a Deshaun Watson, okay, this team will probably be a contender. But since with Tua being the quarterback, I just don't think the Dolphins are going to be up. I just don't think the Dolphins are going to do enough to make the playoffs. So, yeah, I have them as average.